I'm back. So today, if you can't already tell by this title, I'm going to be filming a parent communication video. So a lot of you have asked, I'm so scared to talk to parents. I don't know what to use. I don't know how I should, introduce myself, all that kind of stuff. And I'm here to, it's really not as scary as it seems now. I had great parents in my class this year, but I remember open house before I even started. So, I'm just meeting them for the first time, and I literally was like, oh my god, I can't do this, thought I was going to pass out. I was freaking out, about to have a panic attack. I did not know what to do, and all's well. I made it through. And I loved my parents loved me, so hopefully these tips that I use will help you in your first year. So the first thing I want to talk about is what I used last year. And then I'm going to talk about what I'm going to change this year to make things a little easier. So I used something called the Remind app last year, and the Remind app is just like a messaging thing where I don't have to give the parents my personal number, but I can text them and it goes straight to their phone, from the app, and they can text me and it goes straight to my phone. So that way during the day, if it's just something little that I need to tell them, or if they just want to text me and say, hey, Susie's riding the bus home today, not going carpool. They don't have to call me, they can just send me a message real quick. And it just makes things easier. So however, when the pandemic happened, I did not, it only lets you type 140 characters, so you can't really say as much as you want. So then I decided to make a class Facebook page. So now what I did, so that it wasn't connected to my personal Facebook at all, is I made a whole new Facebook, and I just titled it so-and-so, I just made it my last name and my grade, and then people could search it that way. But everything was private, so I had to, if you searched it, all you could see was my yearbook picture. You couldn't see pictures of the kids, you couldn't see pictures of anything, you couldn't, comment on it or any of that unless you were friends. And so now I had issues with oh, my son's grandma wants to be on there, and I'm I'm sorry, but parents only. Just because you don't know who's on there, not that I think these horrible, but you never know what can happen and what people can see. So I limited it to just parents in my classroom, and my parents loved it because I could make a post. And I posted pictures of our class while we were out. That's where I posted all my read alouds, right on Facebook. I posted the links to our Zooms. I posted links to just all sorts of things. Just different resources that they could use that maybe weren't involved in our remote plan or our lesson plan for that week. But just little fun things like the virtual field trips and all those sorts of things, or just ideas of stuff to do with their kids, because I know no one was planning for all this to happen. No one was planning to have their kids home all day every day for the rest of their lives. Not the rest of their lives, but it feels like it. So I just little things like that I would post on the Facebook, and parents could comment, and it was just easy way for them to, they're already on Facebook. Most people are on Facebook on and off all day long, so it's just easier way for them to see an update rather than me having to call everyone every day, or me having to send out a remind message that's 2 or 3 messages long because I can only type 140 characters. So my parents really liked that, so I told them I think I'm going to keep that next year. However, I did tell them I'm going to be deleting them and deleting all the content on the page. So I'm just going to delete all my parents off, all the pictures that I posted. I had a parent that I sent her all the pictures from the year, and she created an end of year video and posted it on there, and I told her, if you could email that to me so I can save it for myself, but I have to take it off the Facebook page just because the next year's parents are going to come on, and it's just a privacy thing. You don't And the parents don't have to be on there. And I tell my parents that if you don't want to be on that page, or if you don't want your child's picture on that page, or if you, like, I sent home a little form, and that's how, and like, all my parents signed off, but some parents might not, and that's okay. You just keep them off there. Just don't do it. It's fine. But so that's kind of what I did this year. Next year I am thinking about Class Dojo, and I talked a little bit about that in my behavior management video. Class Dojo is a communication app, so it has the messaging just like Remind does, but it also has the behavior management piece with the little monsters, and you can take away or add points depending on behaviors, and their parents can check on that throughout the day if they want. So I think I'm going to try that this year instead of Remind, just because it's a little more advanced. But I have heard, now I'm not familiar with this, but I've heard of some teachers using something called Seesaw, and my understanding is, I could be wrong. I did a little bit of research, but I didn't really understand what it was. It's kind of like a Google Classroom, but easier, I think. They don't have to have a Google account or anything that I know of. They might. I've never used it. I've just heard of it, and I want to give all the resources out there. So that could be one you could look into. So those are like the platforms that I've used. And Google Classroom for this year, obviously, a lot of us. Some people are using Canvas, I think it's called. My school is most likely going to be using Google Classroom, so that's okay. I'm pretty familiar with it. I actually just did an interactive Bitmoji classroom that I'm super excited about, so it's going to be linked to there, so that'll be good. But now, like, actually talking with the parents. When you talk to your parents, you have to be confident. You have to know what you're even if you don't know what you're talking about, you need to pretend. You need to fake it till you make it, because they are trusting you with their little babies, and they want to know that you know what you're doing. And a lot of times with younger teachers, sometimes parents are going to question you, and you have to think about it like you're teaching their baby. Like, they want you to know what you're doing, and it's okay to make a mistake. You have to own up to it. You have to say, hey, I'm so sorry, this happened, blah, blah, but this is what I'm doing to fix it. And, like, you need to have something set in stone. And I've made so many mistakes, and I've texted parents and said, hey, I'm so sorry about blah, 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 but this is, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's okay, like, thank you for contacting me. If you do something wrong and you just kind of, like, ignore it, they're gonna pick up on it, and they're gonna be like, does she even know she did that? Like, it looks bad. So you need to be confident. If you make a mistake, own it. It's okay to make mistakes. You're a first year teacher, you're early on teacher, maybe you're a vet teacher. I don't know if you're watching this. That's great too. But just own your mistakes. It's okay. It's life. Nobody's perfect. They don't expect you to be perfect, so don't stress. Now, another thing that I want to say is and I've already said this in another video, but you need to make sure that in the first 2 weeks of school, you are sending home a positive message, a positive note home, and a positive phone call. Phone call. I know, phone calls are scary. Just do it. Just do it, because they are going to be so excited when they get a call from you and you're saying, oh, little Riley is doing so well in school, like she did today. She did so good in math, and I'm so proud of her, and I really just wanted to call home and let you know that I love having her in my class, blah, blah, something along those lines, because they want to hear those positive things about their child, because it makes them feel good. They makes them feel like, you know what, my kid's doing something right in school. I'm not there during the day. Like, great. And when comes time to have a problem, maybe little Riley is a talker, and we're really having a problem with Riley talking when she's not supposed to, or maybe little Johnny pushed someone over on the playground. And when you call home to address those situations, you want them on your side. You want them to back you up. You don't want the first time that you hear from a parent, or a parent hears from you, to be something negative, because then they're going to think you're trying to attack them. You're not trying to attack them. You're a team. You're a team with your parents. So just remember that. So a phone call home and a note. And now, later on in the year, if you do have an issue, I know sometimes it seems easier, like, oh, let me just send a quick message about it. Or, oh, let me send a note home. But you have to be careful with that, because people, I myself am guilty of this, read messages in a tone that you didn't mean for it to be. So then they think that you're mad or that you're irritated. When you're on the phone, you can express your tone yourself. You can explain yourself. You can ask questions. You can have a really good conversation, even though it's scary. I know it's scary. I hate phone calls. I do. But you have to do it. It's just part of our job. It's part of taking care of these kids. If you had a little kid at school and they were doing something wrong, you would want to know about it. And you wouldn't want somebody just texting you saying, hey, so-and-so did this, blah, blah, blah. Like, you would want to have a conversation. You would want to know what happened. You'd want to, like, that's just how it is. So, just call home. It'll be okay. And another thing that I do, well, I started doing this during distance learning in an email format, but I'm going to do it next year as well, is a newsletter. Now, I don't send home a newsletter every week. I send it home monthly, and just kind of, the birthdays that are coming up, who is in charge of Friday snack for what week is on that list, what's going on in their classroom, if there's any field trips, which we probably won't be going on anytime soon, but just those kinds of things. That way parents have a hard copy. It's all right there. And they can just hang it up on their fridge, on their wherever, and then they have it. I always put my phone number, my classroom phone number, not my personal, and my email on there. So in the Class Dojo code, or Class Dojo, that's what I just made. So not Class Dojo, Remind code. But because some parents, another tip, real quick about the apps. You want to make sure all your parents are on there. I had 2 parents that never signed up for Remind. And so then I'm scurrying around trying to figure out how to contact them. And one of them had a phone number that was disconnected. And I was like, oh my goodness, what the heck? Just sign up for Remind, please. So make sure, really push that in the beginning of the year. Like, oh, you haven't signed up for Remind yet? Like, sign up. Because you want to have everybody on there, so that way everybody, if anything were to happen, you want to have everyone in the same spot where you can just send a quick message, or like field trip remind, that kind of stuff. So try to get everyone on there, and let them in your classroom. I know you don't want them to feel like they are not welcome in your room. We do a thing at our school called VIP breakfast, and it's like in the first 2 months of school, and it's kind of like a curriculum night, only it's in the morning. And we have the kids like do a project, and it's hung up on the wall, and we have Krispy Kreme donuts and coffee and water, and they come to the classroom, they eat breakfast with their student at their desk, and then the kid just gets to show them around their room, show them what they did. And then you get to talk with them, because, a lot of times during curriculum night, I don't know about everywhere, but I know when my parents went to curriculum night, I never went with them. Like, I didn't get to experience it with my parents, and I feel like it's more special if you get to be there with your student. I also let parents, if we ever had a class party, I would let them come in and help. I didn't always let them in my room, just because you don't want them in there all the time, because it becomes a distraction. When kids' parents are in the room, they get excited, like, they don't act the same always. So you got to be mindful. You don't want them in there all the time, and you don't want them just showing up. You want to make sure they're asking. Now, I had one parent sometimes people have room parents, like a room mom or a room dad, who come if you don't have an assistant. Now, I had an assistant, so I didn't need one per se, but it's always good to have an extra set of hands. Like, I know my mom was room mom, and she would, like, make copies for my teacher and do Friday folders and all that kind of stuff. And that just makes them feel like they're helping and that they're welcome in your room, and that it just helps form a positive relationship with those parents. And teaching it's all about relationships. Your relationship with your students, your relationship with your parents, and the relationship of all three of you together, because you have to work together. It takes a village. You're not going to do this on your own. You're not. So just use your parents the best you can. You know, they're not as scary as they seem, I promise. And that's all I have for parent communication. But I really hope that you use some of these. If you have any questions about any of them, comment down below. If you have something that you like better, maybe that's something you use for parent communication that you want to share with us, please put it in the comments. I would love to hear about them. I'm a million different ideas in my head for this year, so I would love to hear what you're doing. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, all the bells and whistles, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye!